Good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of Speaks. We had a perfect start yesterday, and I'm looking forward to the talks today, and I hope you are as well. Before we begin, I had a couple of announcements. All the speakers for today's Speak Talks, as well as oral, please upload your presentations at your respective session locations before 10:30 a.m. so that all the talks go smoothly. And with that, I would like to introduce our first plenary speaker for the day, Dr. Raman Athreya, who will be talking about synergizing biodiversity, conservation, tribal livelihoods, and academic research in Arunachal Pradesh. Dr. Athreya did a PhD in radio astronomy from the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research and spent several years as a postdoctoral researcher in France and Chile. He subsequently joined TIFR as a faculty member in 2003 and is currently the Faculty of Physics and Biology at the IISER, Pune. Internationally known for discovering the Bugun Leo Cicla in Arunachal Pradesh, his work bridges astrophysics and biodiversity conservation. Over to you, Dr. Athreya.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here. Today I'll be talking about work that I've been doing in Arunachal Pradesh for the last 2 decades. One of the big things I've learned from this project is that most conservation projects take decades. In fact, just today at breakfast, Professor Meva Singh was telling me that it took him 20 years to convince the Karnataka state government to declare the Sharavati as a lion-tailed macaque national park or sanctuary. So that's the kind of time scale conservation projects take. When I first started this project in 2003, I thought, actually the reason I started the project was I'd just come back from abroad. I had a nice big camera lens system, and I thought doing a conservation project was a great way of using the camera. But as it turned out, what I thought was a 2 or 3 year project, I'm still there after 20 years. But I must say that I don't quite regret it. So most of you know this. Is there a, how do I, the pointer? Most of you know this. This is Arunachal Pradesh, and that's the Himalayas. And this part is actually an extremely diverse part of the world. For example, this is a paper by Orme et al., 2020. This plots the density of birds. I think it's in a 100 square kilometer grid or 200 square kilometer grid. And you can see that the hotspots of bird diversity is, of course, the top one is the eastern slope of the Andes in South America. And the second is actually Arunachal Pradesh and the Rift Valley region of Africa. So we are talking about something which is truly globally important. And in fact, if you look at not the total bird species, but if you look at threatened species, Arunachal is actually at the top, this red part here. Its only nearest competitor is the southwest Atlantic forest in Brazil. So we are talking about something which is truly of global importance, which was one of the reasons which attracted me to start working in that region. As I said, it's a very important diversity hotspot. It's got the second or third highest density of breeding birds, the highest density of threatened species, the highest density of passeriforms in the world, and about 2/3 of India's species diversity. And until about 30 years ago, there were very little information about its diversity. We all knew that the place was very diverse, but we didn't quite know exactly how diverse. 2003, I started this project, truly spectacular landscape with some of the nicest forests in the country. This is a Google's eye view of what I call the Kameng Protected Area Complex. It's got This is the place where I'm working, Eagle Nest, but it's also part of a much larger area here. There's a Sunai Rupai Wildlife Sanctuary, there's a Nameri Tiger Reserve, Pakke Tiger Reserve, and about 3,500 square kilometers of really nice forest, reserved forest, and so on. And the other thing is, this is the first range of the Himalayas in the east in the path of the monsoon. So a lot of the rainfall falls on the southern slopes of this place, which is where we work. You can see that this forest is actually forest at 3,000 meters. It's like dense forest even at that elevation. I'm standing at a location which is about 2,000 meters. From there, I can see backward there and see continuous canopy all the way to the top. And I can also see the Assam plains at 100 meters elevation. So it's one transect really on essentially a single slope of the mountain, which gives you these graded habitats changing smoothly from plains forest, the swampy forest of the Terai, all the way up to the temperate forest at the top. And one of the nicest things about this place is the fact that there is this road, right? Typically, you'll find in most places in the world, if there is a road, there is no forest in the mountains. And if there is a forest in the mountains, there's no road, no road providing access. But this is one of the few places you can see this ribbon of a road going all the way to the bottom. This makes it a great resource, the place for both ecologists and tourists, ecotourism. Even during the rain, when there's often landslides, you can at least walk safely on this. You don't have to worry about access. So all through the year, we can go into this forest for both research and tourism purposes. It's got a spectacular range of diversity, lots of colorful things. One of my favorite frogs, quite common in that region. This is a lizard which was Nyctophilus austiniana, was rediscovered in that region after 100 years. It's actually quite common there. In fact, a lot of times when people say rediscovered, in that region it just means that somebody actually went there and saw, looked for something. Because most people hadn't done any exploratory work other than 1 or 2 bird surveys in that area, right? This is some of the more iconic bird species. There's the Wardstrogan. This is one of the wren babblers, long-billed wren babbler, rufous-necked hornbill. Moths of Eagle Nest. Much of this work has been done by a close friend of mine, Sanjay Sondi, who lives in Dehradun. Sanjay Sondi was a CEO in Honeywell Corporation in Pune, and he quit that at the ripe old age of 45 years and decided that he wanted to spend some time actually contributing to conservation. And the result is that he's perhaps the best expert of moths in the country. One of the things I was told when I was in school was the difference between moths and butterflies were that moths are dull in color and butterflies are colorful, right? Clearly, the person who wrote the textbook hadn't seen the moths, right? One of the most spectacularly colorful things, almost as colorful as butterflies. This is, we call it the Picasso moth, or it's actually Bawarissa hieroglyphica. It actually does look like hieroglyphics, writings on it. Truly spectacular. And these are some of the new species which have been discovered in that region over the last many years. This again was discovered by Sanjay Sondi, the frog, Leptobrachium. This is a pit viper that our group described a few years ago. And this was a new species described from Arunachal Pradesh by a researcher who used to be in NCBS. So 2006, I described a new species of bird, the Bugun Leochikla, from Eagle Nest Wildlife Sanctuary, which is where I work. And it's even till date, it is only found in a few square kilometers of forest in that region, right? And I'll come back to the very important role that this bird has played in the conservation work in that area. So 2003, I started working there. I just finished my postdoc in France and Chile, and I thought when I came back to India, I should do something useful in life beyond astronomy. These are some of the things we started doing. I went to that place and I met the people of the local community. I was introduced by the forest department as somebody who wanted to do something for conservation. And so they called a meeting of some 10 village worthies. And I gave them my spiel about how I'm going to, work on conservation in that area. And the first question I was asked by them was somewhat direct, and they asked me, like, what's in it for me? One of the persons in that group said, what's in it for me? It's an important question to ask and a very important question to answer. And I hadn't realized how important it was. Over the years, I've realized it's very important that everybody getting into conservation should ask that question. Primarily, in my opinion, because conservation, as I said, takes about 10, 15, 20 years. And if you don't have the motivation which keeps you going year after year, if you don't know what you're in it for, it doesn't have to be anything material, but you need to have that motivation, and for that, you need to know why you're in it. So that's how it started. I gave him this standard spiel about how conservation will help humanity and this and that and a third thing. And he said, all of that is fine, but if you think that you're going to do any conservation here, we want to make sure we get something out of it. And the last 10, 20 years has been in trying to answer that question of how conservation can actually help communities. Because most of the people asked to be involved in conservation are marginal groups living on the edge of wilderness. Their socioeconomic development, certainly the economic development is a factor of 10 behind those of us who talk about conservation. And I think it's important to understand that, that a person with a full stomach is more likely to be worried about conservation than a person who has an empty stomach. So as a person with a scientific background, one of the things I wanted to do was a methodical inventory of the biodiversity of the region. Of the region. I showed you some of those images. Then one of the things we talked about was how to set up an ecotourism venture for the Bugun community. This was going to be the vehicle to attract the Bugun tribe, the people I worked there with, towards conservation. Again, it goes back to the saying that you take care of people's future, the present and the future, and they're more likely to be more well inclined towards conservation. Then apart from this itself, which was going to be the economic incentive, we did a lot of work on conservation awareness of why it is important. And as I figured out, this conservation awareness actually sunk in, even though we had been talking about it from the very beginning, the conservation awareness sunk in when they actually started seeing the economic benefits coming. Until then, it was just all out there in the air. And the other thing I was very keen on is on nurturing researchers. Researchers are actually very important people in many of these things. One of the reasons was also that researchers can also be thought of as tourists. But actually, researchers are tourists who not only bring a much larger amount of money in terms of grants, they keep coming back year after year, and they bring also skills to that area. So they come with 3 good benefits, whereas tourists only come with one of them. They come with money, and they typically only come once, whereas researchers are really excellent tourists, right, as far as the local people are concerned. So these are the 4 things that the project focused on. So the other thing I was very keen on was that somehow we should make sure that this project, conservation project, tourism project, would be financially self-sustaining. And in fact, it was self-sustaining from the first year itself. Our entire input in terms of project grants was about 10 to 12 lakhs over the first 2 or 3 years. And the first year itself, the tourism made about 17 lakhs. 17 lakhs was a largish amount in 2006. It's still a large amount even today for many people. So over the last 20 years, this has sustained itself. We haven't had to put in any money supporting the project from outside. There are about 300 visitors every year. The annual revenue is about close to 70, 80 lakhs. It employs about 40 persons. And since 2010, it's been entirely managed by the local community, right? Mr. Indiglo is a one of the stalwarts of conservation in that area. He's been my partner there for the last 20 years, and these are the first two people who joined the project as employees. So we started from fairly humble beginnings. We did not want to load the ecosystem with a lot of burden in terms of tourism infrastructure. You can see that it's fairly basic, but what we did promise was a spectacular bird assemblage. And apparently a lot of people across the world were very happy to come and stay in these rather harsh surroundings, as long as they were being shown good amount of birds. In fact, in the initial few years, I worked there as a bird guide, and I have shown 420, 430 species of birds in a 18-day, 17-day trip for many groups. So it's a really bird-rich area and a great attraction for international bird tourists. I don't know if you know this, there are reports that bird watching is one of the best, most, contributes one of the largest chunks to the economy in terms of leisure activities across the world. So bird watching is not a trivial input into the economy. So these are some of the local people in our area who have worked with us. And in fact, you'll find that nowadays, the PhD students who work with me, they go there and they're trained by the people there. So my mainstay of data collection actually are people who've been with us for the last many years, and they collect the data for us. He used to work with me 15 years ago, but now much of the time he works with Professor Umesh Srinivasan of IISc. And this is one of my PhD students being trained by Furpa, one of the finest bird guides in that region, also working on moths in my project. So apart from this tourism itself, the information data we generate has been used in a variety of educational programs, training programs. This is one of the most a forest officer I have immense regard for, Mr. Milo Tasser. He was the Eagle Nest DFO for 8 years, and without his active participation and push, I don't think we could have achieved 10% of what is ultimately reached. And this is Mr. Sanjay Sondi. I talked to you about him when I spoke of moths. He lives in Dehradun. So they've been very involved in community work in terms of education. In fact, pretty much every year, the trainee forest officers from the IFS and the ranger training colleges come here to see how conservation can be carried out in partnership with the local tribe. We also have teacher training programs. We have school students coming. So there's a large amount of outreach and awareness programs in this project. So 2010, as I said, I handed over the tourism activity to the Buguns entirely. I decoupled from it. That was part of the whole thing. And 2010 to 2017, nothing seemed to work. But there was actually a lot of things going on in between. And what was happening was Dr. Umesh Srinivasan and the DFO, Milo Tasser, were working quietly with the community, pushing, pulling, cajoling them into saying that now that this tourism has brought in money to the project, to the community, it's important that they come up with something concrete in terms of conservation. And so the most important thing which came out of the project was a legally protected community reserve. The community rather generously set aside 32 square kilometers of their community forest. You know, in India nowadays, nobody sets aside a single acre of forest for anything. It's very difficult to get people to donate land for a project like this. But this community, because they understood why it was important, they set aside 32 square kilometers of the forest. It's a wonderful forest, goes from about 1,300 meters all the way to 3,000 meters. It's an entire suite of biodiversity, and that's a legally protected community reserve. So you can see that the Leo Chikla has become an integral part of their landscape, starting from the chief minister to the local football club to a COVID campaigner. It's sort of become very much a part of the community, and I think this was part of what they saw as a benefit to the community. It was not just about the economic benefit. They saw this as a matter of pride, that people from across the world were coming to see this bird species, which was only found in their area and was named after them. So I think those are the two things that people can use to promote conservation. One is economic benefits, but having put economic benefits into place, pride is an important quantity that can be used. So what next? So far, conservation has sustained tourism. Now, the next thing I want to do is to close the loop, to get tourism to sustain conservation. And our goal is that if we can scale up tourism by a factor of 10 or 20, right, from about 1 crore to about 10 crores of revenue, not inside the wildlife sanctuary, but on the regions outside the wildlife sanctuary, which is where the community reserve is, we should be able to employ about 150 persons, this amount of revenue, and the whole point is that the profit which comes out of this, after providing all that employment, can actually be used to fund conservation activity. So the point is, once we set up the infrastructure, we should be able to actually run this conservation project without any need for funds from outside. So that's the loop I'm talking about, that the conservation has sustained tourism. Now we want tourism to sustain the conservation. That will make it truly sustainable. So over the last 20 years, more than a dozen PhD level researchers have worked in Eagle Nest. Many different areas of research. As I said, large amounts of money has come into the region in terms of research grants. Professor Meva Singh has played a stellar role in making sure researchers in that area get the funding from DST and such other organizations. Researchers also bring in skill training for interested local youth. And I think this is a very important aspect of it, because these local youth work with research teams in the off-season of tourism, and they get employment as guides during tourism season. So it's a nice synergy out there, that they get trained and they earn some money during the off-season working with scientists, and they earn money from tourists during the tourism season. So this is the place where I've spent the last 35 years working. So at the moment, I'm employed here at ICER. Before 2009, I used to be employed here at NCRA. And this is what I was doing when I first came to Arunachal Pradesh in 2006. I was writing my thesis. This is a spectacular radio telescope. You can see the size of that. That is the size of a Jeep. This height is about 40 or 45 meters. This width is 45 meters, so it's even taller actually. Used to be the world's largest radio telescope for about 20 years. I used to work there. And the reason I'm talking about this is, even while I was working there, I managed to convince my boss there that working in Arunachal Pradesh on my vacation time was an appropriate way of spending the vacation leave that TIFR provides. And I must say that this project has involved the generosity of a lot of people in terms of time, in terms of resources, in terms of funding. And without such people quietly helping this project in many, many ways, it wouldn't have been possible. But in 2009, ICER suggested that maybe I should join ICER as a researcher. Again, it's a matter of immense generosity that they said that even though you don't have a PhD in biology, we'd be happy to have you come and do research. We'll provide you funds. And more importantly, we'll trust you with PhD students. Again, I would like to emphasize again and again the kind of generosity which has underpinned this project throughout. So since 2009, I've been here with in the departments of physics and biology. And these are the kind of questions we've been looking at: how to quantify biodiversity, and some aspects of evolutionary biology that we've started looking at. This, for me, is an image that I never fail to show wherever I go. This is just a screen with some ultraviolet lamps. There are more than 2,500 moths on this screen, more than 200 different species, right? You can write volumes about the meaning of diversity, and people may not understand it. You show them this picture, they'll know what's the meaning of diversity. I think this is a great educational resource to tell kids well, maybe even adults, what diversity actually means, right? So my first PhD student set up these screens at multiple elevations between 100 meters and 3,000 meters. And we were asking questions about how diversity would change with elevation. So Mansi Mungi, she finished her thesis in 2018. She's currently a assistant professor at Azim Premji University. This was her thesis, and she started by doing this. She put out screens, actually this is a shirt piece cloth, which had a grid of a known size on it. So we would photograph moths on it, and because we knew that the background was a rectangle of a known size, we would take an image like this, which is normally distorted because you can't hold the camera at a fixed orientation all the time. We would convert these grid back into the right rectangles. Because the moth was sitting flush against the screen, we could actually just measure the length of the wings and the body from the screen itself, right? So this is the first thing she did. She has about 4,500 or 5,000 images of sphinxid moths, hawk moths, and a couple of things, results I'll just show you, just to give you a flavor of the kind of work she did. We found that, for example, moth body size increased with elevation, but in the same transect, the bird body size reduced with elevation, right? So people have been fighting over whether body size should increase with, but elevation is a substitute for temperature. Should it increase with temperature? Should it decrease with temperature? Because body size is just an important trait that it is implicated in multiple ecological processes. Here we showed that even in the same place, if you look at different taxa, they behave differently with temperature or elevation, which suggests that more than one process is at play. I won't go more into that. Here I've plotted just the wing area and the body length for different subfamilies of the hawk moths. So the green is one subfamily, the red is another one, and the black is a third subfamily. And you can see that even with just two traits, body size and wing length, it neatly segregates in trait space, right? So this is, for example, even at the level of species, we can see this segregation. There's this continuous change from one species to the other in different genera. So these are the kind of things that one can look at, how functional space changes with elevation, how functional space changes with phylogenetic signal, and so on. The project that I'm most keen on doing is this. This is something I want to contribute over the next 5 or 10 years. We want to create a long-term monitoring project for moths. It will be a public resource for both research and education. So what we will do is we will set up, before that. So why do we want to look at moths in an ecosystem? Moths are the second most diverse faunal taxon in the world. They're relatively easy to identify. They're the most visibly abundant taxon in most habitats. And it's perhaps the easiest macro taxon to sample in terms of effort and money. I keep joking that it's actually not very much of a joke that this is my retirement project. All I have to do is to put up a screen, sit with a mug of your favorite fluid, put your feet up on the table, and the moths will come to you, right? And ecologically, this is very important. They're the key herbivores in most ecosystems. When you talk of herbivores, you tend to think of antelopes in Africa, but actually moths are the most important herbivores which convert plant food into animal tissue. And this is something that really is great. It doesn't have any great conservation concern. So forest departments tend to be easier to deal with in terms of intrusive research. Of course, WIA may not have that problem at all, but the rest of us mortals in the country do have problems in terms of getting permits for intrusive research. So this is what we want to end up doing. Have a publicly annotated, a public database, an annotated database, which can be used in citizen science, education. You can actually do hands-on ecology. You can put up these moth screens in colleges or schools across the country, and they can do basic biodiversity research, actually understand many of the concept of biodiversity in terms of numbers, which is sort of missing in many college curricula. And also citizen science. All you have to do is to put up a screen like this, doesn't cost very much, and you can get this. What we want to do is we get about sometimes, at the least, we get about 1,000 moths per screen, 3 screens a night, 10 nights a month, 8 months a year. We're looking at about 250,000 moths a year. So we are setting up a program to be able to sample something like this, use AI and machine learning to be able to identify the species, measure the body size, and measure the wing size, and put it up on a public database that people can download freely. And we believe that if people who understand field and data collection put high quality data out on the web and make it public. The others can actually analyze it and increase our knowledge in terms of using published papers and so on to a much greater extent. I think this is something which has been done in other fields, and I think ecology should go the same way. These are some of the, how much time do I have? 5 minutes. Okay. These are some of the other questions. I shall rush through this. I won't spend too much time on this. Some of the other work being done by my students. This is looking at abundance patterns of birds. What's the shape of the elevational profile of the abundance of individual species? Are they symmetric? Are they asymmetric? We are looking at various aspects of this. We can actually derive what the shape might be using an equation like this in ecology, a differential equation. And this is one of the things I focus on how to use more and more mathematics in terms of to translate it into measurables in terms of ecology. Then another PhD student who's going to finish in a few months, Devjyoti Datta, he's looking at 3 individuals of Philotus frogs, 3 species of Philotus frogs, which are nicely segregated by elevation. There's a low elevation species, mid elevation species, and a high elevation species. We are using the data to find out intraspecific diversity in these groups. We can see, for example, in the highest elevation species, there seems to be a strong signal of local adaptation. Again, I don't want to go into great detail. It'll take me 15 minutes to go into that. We are also looking at intraspecific population level diversity. Yeah, let me sum up what we learned in terms of the conservation strategy. One was the most important thing we did, which sort of led to the success of the conservation project, is that we constructed an entire conservation ecosystem. One of the things I realized during the first few years of this project was that it would be very difficult for one person to do all aspects of a conservation project, not just because there's not enough time, but because different peoples have different skills, and different aspects of the project need different skills. So it's almost impossible that one person can do it, which means you have to create an ecosystem where many people can come and contribute a small amount or a greater amount and move on. We had an overall plan. A plan is important for the entire area, for all stakeholders, and with a 5 to 10 year horizon. Conservation projects don't happen in 2 or 3 years. Notwithstanding the pressure from funding agencies, conservation needs many more than a few years. Also, clarity of purpose. We had well-defined goals and priorities. We had to construct an exciting narrative to attract tourists, well-defined product to deliver the promised tourist experience. So we had to look at multiple aspects of it. There was the economic aspect, there was the tourism, hospitality aspect, there was the research aspect, marketing, and then an exit lane. Too often, outside resource people like myself hang on to conservation projects for too long. It's important to give up and pass on the responsibility to the actual people involved. Long-term engagement I've already talked about. I've also talked about multiple contributors, different skills, different ambitions, but making sure that they have the same destination. We invested a lot in local skill development. NGOs contributed, research teams contributed, the forest department contributed, various employment opportunities. This is the synergy I'm talking about, all the different aspects that were important. Conservation awareness teams, education teams, and the push towards tangible conservation. That it's not just important to run it as a project, but actually to have measurable outcomes. And in our case, the measurable outcome was that 32 square kilometers of protected area, legally protected area, one component of it. And also the fact that the community appreciates that conservation is important. Each component in itself would not have had the staying power. For example, ISA pays me a salary to run my research project, and ultimately I'll have to deliver in terms of the research project. But because I had a research project there, it allowed me the space to engage with the community for 20 years. If I was only working on the conservation project with no research thing to motivate me there, I would have done my tourism project for the first 4 years, and when I decoupled, I would have lost interest in it. Even though the dynamics of the community was evolving slowly, which ultimately led to the declaration of the community reserve. There wouldn't have been time and space for that to happen without this continuous engagement, which only happened because I had some other reason to be there for 20 years. And I think that's the synergy I want to highlight. It's important that everybody finds the motivation to hang in there for those 10, 15, 20 years, and you need your own motivations to do that. But ultimately, with different people bringing in different skills, different perspectives, with everybody pulling in the right direction, as I said, with the right synergy, is perhaps one ingredient necessary for taking a conservation project towards success. These are the 4 important groups who contributed massively to the project. This is Mr. Indiglo and the first team I showed you about. This is the principal people of the Bugun community. Dr. Umesh Srinivasan from ISC, he's contributed spectacularly for this project. This is the DFO with the team of local protection Bugun staff who are not part of the forest department, but have multiplied the staff protecting the forest by a factor of 4 or so. There are 2 forest guards, but 10 of these people. So this conservation project has improved protection for the forest in concrete ways. And with that, I end my talk. Thank you. I'm not sure there is time, but if there is time, I can play a video, but that's not essential. Yeah. Okay, that should be fine. So this is a video we set up for a fundraising campaign to raise funds for that, the expanded tourism project that I was talking about, to close the loop, as I said. Yeah.
A birdwatching vacation to Eagle Nest Sanctuary in 1995 evolved into a conservation project in 2003. Eagle Nest in Arunachal Pradesh is an enchanting wilderness, one of the richest in the world. Yet, it was unknown to ecologists just 20 years ago. Following our pioneering efforts, over 2,500 species have now been documented in Eagle Nest. 450 species of birds, 1,500 species of moths and butterflies, and another 600 species of ants, amphibians, mammals, reptiles, etc. Yet, this is probably not even a tenth of its total diversity. Eagle Nest is like Noah's Ark. Protecting its small area of 218 square kilometers conserves the entire suite of biodiversity of the much larger 3,000 square kilometers around it. Our scientific research in Eagle Nest initiated high-value bird tourism in 2006. This has created livelihoods for the Bugun indigenous community and incentivized local conservation while financially sustaining itself for 15 years. The Bugun leochikla was scientifically described as a new species in 2006. The first one since India became independent. This star species attracts tourists from all over the world.
बुगुन ल्यूचिकला मिलने के बाद टूरिज्म में बहुत फ़ायदा हुआ है हमें। एक छोटा से कम्युनिटी है हमारा, 350 पॉपुलेशन है, तो एक चिड़िया का नाम से अभी पॉपुलर हो गया, हमारा इतना नाम हो गया ये सिंचुंग जो है, तो इससे फ़ायदा और खुशी और हमें क्या हो सकता है।
My decision to name it after the Buguns has enthused conservation efforts in the community. In 2017, the Buguns converted their private forest into a legally protected community reserve to protect the Bugun leochikla.
Under the management plan, we have employed 9 boys and 1 girl. So they have been trained to patrol the community reserve. We have built a check gate right outside the entry point of the community reserve, which is manned by the staff 24/7. This community reserve lies right outside Eagle Nest Wildlife Sanctuary. So automatically Eagle Nest Sanctuary gets more protection.
The conservation project is also contributing to education programs in schools, to nature camps for children, to conservation outreach towards local communities and visitors, and to skilling to support increasing local aspirations. Ironically, school dropouts trained in this project lead field data collection for globally competitive academic research. Indeed, they train PhD students in the rigors of field data.
ये कंजर्वेशन प्रोजेक्ट से मुझे फॉरेस्ट पेट्रोल लुकआउट में एम्प्लॉयमेंट मिला और साथ ही मुझे फिल्म मेकिंग का कोर्स भी दिया गया है.
Our new approach to self-sustaining conservation has received considerable public acclaim, both national and international.
Astronomer, academic, and on the field, a lifetime of service. Congratulations.
Successful conservation needs financial support for decades, like research to sustain biodiversity, ecotourism, like forest protection, for conservation strategies for highly endangered species, and skilling for alternative livelihoods to reduce extraction of forest resources. But donor support usually lasts only a few years. We need your involvement and help to implement this new paradigm of self-sustaining, multifaceted conservation. A vastly scaled up version of the successful pilot project will provide employment to hundreds of people and generate revenue surplus which will itself fund eagle nest conservation for decades. So far, conservation has sustained indigenous livelihoods around eagle nest. Now we will demonstrate that livelihoods can fund conservation in perpetuity.